I never thought my life would turn into one of those stories. The kind you read about on Reddit, where you think, no way, this is too insane to be real. But here I am. And the worst part? I wish this wasn't real. I wish I was making this up. It all started when my mom, Sarah, passed away. I was 14. Cancer took her fast. One day she was fine, and the next, she was fighting for her life. I barely remember that year, just a blur of hospital rooms, whispered conversations I wasn't supposed to hear, and my dad looking more exhausted every day. And then, suddenly, she was gone. The house felt empty without her. Too quiet. My dad, Michael, wasn't the same after she died. He buried himself in work, coming home late, barely speaking to me. I wanted to believe he was just grieving, like I was. But even back then, something about it felt different. Like he was trying to erase the life we had before, instead of just moving through the pain. Before she died, my mom did something that, at the time, I didn't fully understand. She set up an education fund just for me. She used her life insurance, her savings, everything she had, to make sure I would go to college without worrying about money. I remember sitting with her on the back porch one evening, the summer before she got sick. She was drinking iced tea, and I was reading some book I don't even remember now. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know, no matter what happens, I'll always make sure you're okay." I had laughed, not knowing what she meant. "Duh, Mom. You're not going anywhere." She had just smiled, but now I realized she already knew. For the first 2 years after she was gone, my dad didn't date. He barely seemed present at all, just drifting through life like a ghost. And then he met Joan. Joan was nice. Or at least, I thought she was. She had this effortless charm, the kind of warmth that made people trust her instantly. She never pushed me to see her as a mother figure, which I appreciated. And she had a daughter, Emily, who was a year older than me. At first, it wasn't bad. We weren't super close, but we got along fine. She was friendly, a little competitive, but nothing that seemed like a red flag. But then my dad started acting different. At first, it was small things. He would talk about Emily's soccer games more than anything happening in my life. He started helping her with college applications while barely acknowledging mine. And then it got worse. He missed my school play because Emily had a tournament. He forgot my birthday until Joan reminded him halfway through dinner. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it. And then came the accident. It was Emily's birthday. I had been driving home late after a study session when someone ran a red light and hit me. It wasn't that bad. I got some bruises, a mild concussion, but I was still taken to the hospital just in case. I called my dad. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Finally, 3 hours later, he walked into my hospital room. His first words weren't, "Are you okay?" or "What happened?" No. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Do you have any idea how much you ruined Emily's night?" I remember staring at him, trying to process what he had just said. My head was throbbing, my hands were still shaking from the crash, and he was mad at me? Something inside me cracked that night. After that, I stopped trying. Stopped waiting for him to notice me. Stopped hoping things would go back to normal. I focused on school, on getting scholarships, on making a plan for college. And through all of it, I knew I had my education fund waiting for me. My mom's final gift. Until I found out I didn't. It happened just before my high school graduation. I had started looking at tuition costs, trying to figure out what I'd need from the fund. That's when I asked my dad about it. He barely even looked at me when he said, "Oh, I gave it to Emily. She needed it more." I thought I had misheard him. "What?" He sighed, like I was annoying him. "Emily got into a great school, but Joan and I couldn't afford it. You'll figure something out." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "That was my money," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged. "It's just money, Lauren. You'll be fine." I walked out of the house that night and never went back. I went straight to my grandparents' house. They had always been there for me, quietly, in the background, never interfering unless they had to. But when I told them what happened, something changed. I had never seen my grandfather so angry. He just stood up and walked into his office without a word. A few minutes later, he came back, holding a check. He placed it in front of me. $1 million. I stared at it, my hands shaking. "Grandpa, This is yours," he interrupted. His voice was calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. "It was always meant for you. We had this set aside just in case. And now? Now you need it." My grandmother squeezed my shoulder. "You're not alone, sweetheart." I started crying then. Not just because of the money. Not just because I was finally safe, but because, for the first time in years, I felt like someone had chosen me. But of course, my dad found out. And the next day, he called me. Not to apologize. Not to make things right. But to demand I give half of it to Emily. I let the phone ring. Then I let it ring again. And again. I knew why he was calling. I knew exactly what he was going to say. And I also knew that if I picked up, I would hear his voice. The same voice that used to comfort me as a kid when I had nightmares. The same voice that used to tell me bedtime stories, and I might, just might, hesitate. So I didn't answer. Instead, I sat at my grandparents' kitchen table, staring at the check in front of me. My hands were still trembling from the weight of it, not the money itself, but what it represented. A lifeline. A way out. Proof that someone, finally, had my back. Lauren. My grandmother's voice was gentle, but firm. You're pale as a ghost, sweetheart. Drink some water. I blinked, realizing my mouth was dry, my heart still racing. I took a sip, but it barely helped. Grandpa folded his arms. He called, didn't he? I nodded. He's going to ask for the money. He scoffed. No. He's going to demand it. Because that's what he does, isn't it? Takes what he wants and leaves you with nothing. I swallowed hard. He's going to guilt me. He's going to say Mom would be disappointed in me. Grandma's face darkened. Oh, I'd love to hear him explain how your mother, who spent years making sure you'd be taken care of, would be ashamed of you for keeping what was rightfully yours. I let out a weak laugh, but it didn't reach my chest. It's just, I don't know. It's not like Emily stole it herself. It was my dad's decision. And she knew, Grandpa interrupted. Don't sugarcoat it, Lauren. She knew where the money came from, and she took it anyway. She never called you to apologize, never tried to fix it. She's not innocent. I stared at the table, chewing on the inside of my cheek. I guess I just don't want to be like him. Taking something and not thinking about what it costs someone else. Grandma reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. The difference is, this was never Emily's to begin with. I exhaled slowly. I know. I just hate that it's come to this. A beat of silence. Then Grandpa leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Lauren, I need you to listen to me very carefully. He is not going to stop. Not until he gets what he wants. So you have two choices. You either keep entertaining his calls, letting him wear you down, or you shut the door completely. I looked down at my phone, my dad's name still sitting on the screen. My thumb hovered over it for a second. Then I pressed block. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to free. But of course, that wasn't the end. 2 days later, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. Emily, hey, can we talk? I sighed, rubbing my temples. My first instinct was to ignore it. But something nagged at me. A part of me wanted to hear her out. Maybe, just maybe, she felt bad. So I responded, what do you want? A few seconds later, can we meet? Please? I hesitated. Then, against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small park near her house, a place I hadn't been to in years. She was already sitting on a bench when I got there, arms crossed over her chest, looking smaller than I remembered. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she let out a breath. I don't even know where to start. I crossed my arms. How about an apology? She flinched. I am sorry, Lauren. I swear, I didn't know at first. Bullshit. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. You did know. Maybe not at the beginning, but at some point, you had to. And you still took it. She looked down at her hands. I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, you're smart. You could get scholarships, and I. She trailed off. I stared at her, waiting. And you what? She swallowed. I didn't think I had another option. A cold laugh bubbled up in my throat. Right. Because taking my money was the only way you could survive. She looked miserable. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know. I guess I wanted you to understand. I shook my head. Understand? Emily, I was homeless. I had to leave my house because of this. And now my dad is trying to take my grandparents' money too. So no, I don't think I will understand. She chewed on her lip, her eyes darting away. He told me to ask you for some of it. I felt my stomach drop. Are you serious? She nodded. He thinks you have more than enough now. And that if you really cared about family, you'd. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Stop. Just stop. She fell silent. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. Tell him I said no. And tell him I never want to hear from him again. Her face twisted with something I couldn't quite place. Regret, maybe. Or guilt. But she didn't argue. She just nodded. I turned and walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. A week passed with nothing. No texts. No calls. No desperate messages from unknown numbers. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, my father had finally given up. Maybe Emily had actually passed along my message, and he had accepted it. But deep down, I knew better. And then, it happened. I was sitting in my grandparents' living room, flipping through college orientation emails, when my grandfather's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and sighed. It's him. I sat up straighter. You sure you don't want to block him too? Grandpa smirked. Oh, I like knowing when my idiot son is making a fool of himself. He answered, putting it on speaker. Not asking, Dad. I'm telling you. Lauren doesn't need all that money, and I'm still your son. I deserve something. My grandmother let out a sharp breath. Unbelievable. Grandpa, ever the composed one, leaned back in his chair. Michael, you're pushing 50. You have a job. A house. Why are you acting like you need your parents to fund your life? Silence. Then, because you gave it all to her. My chest tightened. Grandpa sighed. Lauren isn't some stranger off the street. She's our granddaughter. And frankly, you're lucky we didn't cut you off years ago. She manipulated you, my dad snapped. She played the victim until you felt sorry for her. And now she is everything, while Emily has nothing. I clenched my fists. I had nothing first, and you were fine with that. For the first time, he hesitated. But then, like always, he doubled down. I was trying to do what was best for my family. Grandpa rubbed his temples. Funny. Last I checked, Lauren was your family. But I guess she stopped matching once you found a replacement, huh? Dad scoffed. I don't have time for this. Either you do the right thing, or I'll make sure you regret it. I rolled my eyes. Oh, what are you going to do? Sue us? Again? And then, without missing a beat, he said, maybe. The line went dead. Grandma exhaled. That man. I swear, I don't know what I did wrong raising him. Grandpa just shook his head. If he wants a fight, we'll give him one. But he's not getting a damn cent from us. I nodded, but my stomach was churning. I wanted to believe it was just an empty threat, that he was just throwing a tantrum. But I also knew my father. And he never threatened something unless he thought he could win. 2 days later, the legal notice arrived. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope in front of me. My name was printed on it, right next to my grandparents'. I already knew what it was before I even opened it. He actually did it, I whispered. My grandfather took the papers from me, scanning them. He's contesting our will. Grandma snatched them next. Oh, for God's sake. I swallowed hard. So what does this mean? Grandpa sighed. It means he's claiming we're not mentally fit to handle our finances. That we've been manipulated into giving you money. He set the papers down with a humorless chuckle. He wants the court to give him control over our estate. My chest tightened. So he's trying to take everything? Grandma slammed the papers on the table. Over my dead body. Grandpa leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Lauren, listen to me. He won't win. He can't. Everything is locked in legally. He's grasping at straws. I nodded, but my hands were still shaking. Not because I thought he'd succeed, but because I knew this was just the beginning. The lawsuit wasn't about winning. It was about wearing us down. My dad knew he didn't have a case. He wasn't contesting my grandparents' will because he thought he had a legal right to anything. He was doing it because he wanted to make our lives miserable. He wanted us to feel trapped, to feel like we had no choice but to cave and give him what he wanted. But he underestimated us. The first court date was set for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, my grandparents' lawyer assured us that my dad's claims were weak. It's nothing more than a desperate cash grab, he had said. Judges see this kind of thing all the time. That should have made me feel better. But it didn't. Because while the legal battle was dragging on, my dad decided to attack from a different angle. He went public. It started small, whispers in town, former neighbors giving me strange looks at the grocery store. And then, one night, I was scrolling through my phone when I saw it. A post on Facebook. It's heartbreaking when your own family betrays you. When your own child manipulates her elderly grandparents into cutting you off, taking money that isn't hers. I raised Lauren. I gave her everything. And now, she's turned them against me. All because of greed. I hope she's happy. My stomach dropped. The comments were full of sympathy. People calling me selfish. Saying families should stick together. That money changes people. I wanted to scream. I barely registered getting up from the couch, pacing back and forth. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my phone. My grandparents walked into the room, frowning. Lauren, What's wrong? I turned the screen toward them. Grandpa sighed. Jesus Christ. Grandma snatched my phone, scrolling furiously. I knew he was an ass, but this is disgusting. I sat down, rubbing my temples. People are believing him. They don't know the full story, and now Grandpa cut me off. You don't owe anyone an explanation. But I wasn't so sure. Because the next day, Joan reached out. I hadn't spoken to her since she left my dad, and honestly, I didn't expect to ever hear from her again. But there she was, messaging me out of nowhere. Joan, I've had enough. Check Facebook. I hesitated before clicking on her profile. And there it was. A full-blown call-out post aimed right at my father. I stayed quiet for too long, but I won't anymore. Michael is lying. Lauren didn't manipulate anyone. He did. He stole from her. He took the money her mother left for her and gave it to my daughter instead. Now, he's suing his own parents because he can't stand that they helped the daughter he abandoned. He is not the victim here. And if anyone doubts me, I have proof. Emails, bank statements, messages. Try me. My jaw dropped. Within minutes, people were sharing it, commenting. Some of the same people who had pitted my dad were now backtracking, saying they had no idea there was another side to the story. And then, an hour later, Emily commented, "Well, so you're just gonna throw Dad under the bus like that? Guess I know where your loyalty lies." Joan responded immediately. Loyalty? Loyalty? You mean the way he was loyal when he stole Lauren's money? When he lied? When he tried to take his own parents' savings? Spare me, Emily. You're just mad you don't get to benefit from his bullshit anymore. I gasped. I had never seen Joan talk like that. Emily, for the first time since this whole mess started, actually showed something real. We all do what we have to do to survive. And that was it. No apology. No regret. Just the cold, ugly truth. Emily didn't care about what had been taken from me. She never had. As long as she came out on top, nothing else mattered. And in that moment, I felt free. I didn't owe her anything. I didn't owe any of them anything. They had taken from me, lied to me, used me. And now? Their little empire of lies was crumbling. The court date arrived faster than I expected. I wasn't nervous. I was angry. Furious, actually. My father had already lost everything. His wife left him. His parents had cut him off. His lies had been exposed for the whole town to see. But instead of admitting what he had done, instead of apologizing, he had doubled down, dragged this whole thing to court like he deserved something. Like he was the victim. I sat between my grandparents in the courtroom, my hands gripping the edge of my seat as my father walked in. He looked worse than before, wrinkled suit, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders hunched forward like he knew how this was going to end. But he didn't look at me. Not once. I should have felt triumphant. I should have enjoyed seeing him lose. But mostly, I just felt tired. His lawyer started with the same pathetic argument that my grandparents were mentally unfit to handle their own finances, that I had coerced them into giving me money, that I had stolen from him. It was laughable. Our lawyer shut everything down with actual facts. My grandparents had been seeing the same financial advisor for decades. Their wills had been in place long before this mess started. Doctors had confirmed they were perfectly capable of handling their estate. My dad had nothing. No case. No evidence. Just a desperate attempt to take what wasn't his. I watched as his lawyer shifted uncomfortably, realizing how badly this was going. But then, just when I thought it was over, he pulled out one last card. Your Honor, we'd also like to request an inquiry into the deceased estate, his lawyer said. We believe there may be cause to review the circumstances surrounding the late Mrs. Bennett's life insurance and education fund. My breath stopped. He wasn't just coming after my grandparents' money. He was coming after my mother's will. I felt sick. My grandfather shot up from his seat. You son of a... The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Bennett, sit down. I could barely process what was happening. My father had already taken my education fund. And now, he was trying to twist it into something illegal? But before our lawyer could even respond, my father did something I never expected. He stood up. His own lawyer looked surprised. Michael, drop it, my dad said, his voice hoarse. His lawyer frowned. But, I said we're done. The judge eyed him carefully. Mr. Bennett, are you withdrawing your claims? He swallowed hard, his gaze locked on the table in front of him. Yes. Just like that, it was over. I didn't know what changed. Maybe he finally saw how ridiculous this was. Maybe he realized he had already lost. Or maybe, for the first time, he felt ashamed. It didn't matter. The judge dismissed the case. My grandparents and I walked out of the courtroom victorious. I thought he would leave without speaking to me. But as we stepped outside, he called my name. I turned. For the first time in years, he really looked at me. And for the first time, there was no anger, no arrogance, no manipulation, just regret. I lost you, didn't I? He asked quietly. I stared at him. At the man who had once been my hero. At the man who had ruined everything. Yes, I said. You did. He nodded, slowly. And then, without another word, he walked away. I haven't seen him since. It's been months now. The legal mess is over. My grandparents updated their will, ensuring my father will never have a claim to their estate. Joan finalized her divorce. Emily is still bitter, but I don't care. As for me, I'm in college, studying business, something I never thought I'd be able to do after my father stole my education fund. My grandparents' gift gave me more than just financial security. It gave me freedom. And for the first time in years, I feel whole again.